Abigail Beck.
Hello, I'm Abigail Beck, and I'm just sitting here reminiscing, thinking about my life and my family. I was married to James Beck. We got married in 1865, just as soon as he got home from fighting in the Civil War. And we were fortunate to be married for over 65 years. Now, I don't know if you remember, but for a while, we had a grocery store over at Washington and Buttrick Streets. That was our store there. Everything we did together we loved. We had a wonderful marriage. And sadly for me, James died 8 years ago, so here I am alone with my memories. Now, we had 6 children. I know you're not too interested in all of this, so I promise to make it snappy because you want to hear about my famous grandson, right? Yes. Well, I'll make it snappy. Our 3rd child was Abigail. We named her after me. And she had the great misfortune to marry a man by the name of George Chandler. They had 3 sons. The oldest one, Gordon, died at 19. The second one, Leslie, died at 22. And what I didn't tell you was that that good-for-nothing husband ran off on Abby the same year that she gave birth to George, the little George, in 1898. So young George and his brothers had to be raised mostly by the mother alone, which was difficult. I tried to help her. Well, young Georgie was a spunky boy, just sharp as a tack, and what a sense of humor he had. He always said that the acting bug bit him when he was 12 and he got to wear a donkey's head in A Midsummer Night's Dream. Well, he learned to play the violin, grew up to be a very smart young man, went to the University of Illinois and got a business degree. But all the while he was in college, he led the student band. He was the lead in all of the vaudeville presentations. He clowned in the circus. He played a saw. Just stayed with the humor there. And when he graduated, he sold bonds for a while in Chicago, but he still kept up with leading an orchestra and doing vaudeville. He had his own act, and it was called George Chandler, the Balloon Boy. See, he was the original balloon player. If you've ever seen that done, you kind of make it squeak and whistle and like that. Well, then he changed the name of his act to George Chandler, the Musical Nut. Well, he got very good reviews and thought he would head out for Hollywood to see if he could get into the movies, but it wasn't so easy, and he was having no luck until he helped a young man with his act and was invited to Universal Studios to meet his mother. Well, sure enough, along comes a director, takes one look at Georgie, and hires him on the spot to be in a comedy. So he was cast in a series of 12 two-reelers called the Tenderfoot Thrillers that came out in 1927. Well, then he started getting more and more small roles in pictures. He was becoming known as a character actor, and he has done, he's acted as perhaps a barfly, an elevator boy, a waiter, a photographer, small things like that. He's not very handsome, you see, but he says, I don't care, because handsome lads may come and go, but an ugly mug on a character actor always has a job. He's right. He's right. If you've seen The Virginian with Gary Cooper, that was the first feature film that George was in, and he was a young man plucking chickens in a kitchen in preparation for a big dinner. Well, I look at those roles, I look at him and I just say, that's my Georgie. He's been in a lot of movies by now, and so many I can't remember, but I try to follow his career. He has been in The Florodora Girl with Marion Davies, and he had a slightly larger role because he got to play the rejected boyfriend. He's played in Elmer the Great with Joe E. Brown. Now, he's not so handsome. He's got a big mouth. W.C. Fields, Carol Lombard, Alice Faye, James Stewart. This year, he's in 3 movies that I think will be big ones. One is Jesse James with Tyrone Power, Young Mr. Lincoln with Henry Fonda, and Beau Just starring Gary Cooper. I'm going to see all 3 of them. And so far, if my calculations are correct, he's been in 167 movies. Now, his mother, Abby, lives part-time in Waukegan and part-time out in California following George's career. In 1930, they came back here for a visit, and it was very funny because the local papers were all saying, movie star visits Waukegan. Well, we all know he wasn't quite the star, but that's hopefully still in his future. And then in 33, he came back to visit his mother and me here, and you should have been there because I believe every person in Waukegan was down at Edison Court Station cheering for him as he got off that train. It was wonderful. Now, I have to say, my grandson is a nice man. He's a very talented and funny man, and I couldn't be prouder of him. I know he's just making his mark in Hollywood, and I'll be watching him in the future. Well, thank you for stopping by. I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Beck. George Chandler's last visit to Waukegan was in 1948 to liquidate his mother's estate. Until 1979, he had acted in 359 films, mostly in small parts. His last movie was The Apple Dumpling Gang Rides Again, with Tim Conway and Don Knotts. He served at Screen Actors Guild as board member, treasurer, and president. He portrayed Uncle Petrie on TV in Lassie from 1957 until 1964. George died in 1985 and is buried in California. You folks just want to follow me?